All right, believe we are good to go in just a minute or two here, folks. The match for tonight is about to start. Is my delay set up? It looks like it is. Yes, it looks like it should be fine. We shall see how long it takes for the two teams to set the lobby up. Um, we are on the right thing, I believe. Yep. And everything should be set up and ready to go. Just as soon as they're ready. Let's do that real quick. Turn you up slightly. That should be good. I, for one, am very excited for tonight's match because Die Gaming, I mean, really the whole entirety of Division B Northeast has just been a confusing mess, but Die Gaming in particular have been really amping up their game over the past couple of matches. I mean, obviously, when they beat us and threw us out of the championship, they were performing significantly better than they were at the beginning, so I'm excited to see if they can pull a complete upset and beat the top team in our division. I think Legal is probably the most consistent out of all the teams, although I believe they did get beaten by Lubu at some point. I could be getting that wrong, but Legal did definitely get beaten by one of the lower teams in our division. So if but only once, I believe. So if Die Gaming can pull off a victory against them tonight, it is going to be a very surprising and interesting scenario. All right, so we have Legal on the left here, so I need to swap that. All right, that should work. Looks like everything is good to go. Our first map looks like it's going to be Tomb of the Spider Queen. I don't know by whom it was picked just yet, but we shall see in a minute. I've been informed that the first map ban was no peanuts, so very useful information. Hello, Apple Abe 09. How's it going? Thank you. So that would be them, Towers and Dragonshire. And then Volskaya and Hanamura were banned on the other side. What the hell? That's not good. Looks like my... Ooh, a lot of stuff is going wrong here. Oh dear. Casting overlay controller is not responding. Might have to do an impromptu notepad thingy. Hopefully, alright, so we have to give me a minute. Our gaming picked Tomb, and then hopefully you won't crash this time. So that was Towers, I believe, yes, and Dragonshire. And then on the side of Die Gaming, they banned Volskaya and Hanamura. So hopefully that doesn't break again. Okay. Good to go. Interesting. Should be when you are. There is just a lot of stuff going on in this chat. People are saying they want to ban peanuts, they want more peanuts. People are saying that Frag is staying at the 4 seasons total landscaping, and I don't know what that means. So as soon as they're ready to go, we will jump in here. I really should try and find out what other casters do to fill in the time while the teams are getting ready. I know that Smiley has been pretty strong in this competition. I don't remember a ton of the names because the whole season has kind of been a blur. But I believe Hydra Hawk was a pretty strong player as well. I want to say he was an assassin, but I could be wrong on that front. So, if I recall correctly, I think it was Hydra Hawk that played a pretty strong Tychus against us in our match that we played against Gaming. So that's really the only thing that I think I remember out of this whole series. But I mean, on the whole, both teams, as of late, have had a very strong showing. I know Legal, of course, has been just dominant the entire season, and Gaming has, as I previously mentioned, really upped their game as of late. Oh. I don't know what else to say from there. I could try and see if this is working again. Well, I don't want to mess with this any more than it already is. Are you gonna set logo properly, or is that gonna break it? Okay, that's gonna break it. Well, I guess if the logos seem to be fine. So, seems like the overlay controller has some issues. I'll have to see if there's a new version for it after this. It's interesting, I haven't had that issue before in my previous 2 casts. Let's see, how has everyone's week been while we're waiting for the players to get ready? I have had an interesting week. Oh, looks like they're about to get ready. 3, 2, 1, and I believe we are good to go. Potentially? There we go. Tomb of the Spider Queen, excellent. So, as I mentioned, I believe that Hydra Hawk plays a pretty strong Tychus, if I recall correctly. It's going to be interesting to see if the side of Legal decides to ban that out. Top bans in the meta right now, I believe, are still D.Va, Gazlowe, a little bit less so. And we've been seeing a lot of Chromie getting banned in competitive play. Diablo ban makes sense. It's an interesting map for that. I might be mixing Hydra Hawk up with somebody else. He might be their tank player. But Diablo is always a good tank, and he's in a very nice spot right now with 3 separate builds that all do different things but are very good at what they do. And I've been a big fan of where the team has taken Diablo as of late. On the side of Gaming, they're going to be banning ETC, always very stable. Mosh Pit, of course, is pretty much the scariest ability in the game, and he's never been out of the meta. Gazlowe, on the other hand, it's interesting to see. I would not be surprised to see a D.Va ban out of Gaming here. If they don't, I'm expecting Legal to pick that up, especially on Tomb of the Spider Queen. D.Va's double soak potential is quite high, and she does not have a hard time joining the team for that that good old bomb potential. Stukov, on the other hand, banned out by Dai for the second of their 2 bans, and Tassadar picked up by Legal. Also makes a lot of sense for that extra wave clear. Very similarly to D.Va, Tassadar does have a lot of wave clear, is very good at doing his job, And it's going to be interesting to see if we're going to see Diva at all here. It's entirely possible that she does not turn up, what with her most recent nerf. Not exactly a huge power reduction in the grand scheme of things, but has hit her popularity a bit. Johanna and Greymane picked up on the side of Die Gaming. Pretty stable, reliable picks. Both of them are good wave clearers, much like Tassadar. Both of them are good in general. Just going to do that real quick. And then Legal, they have their mage picked up. So we will see what else. Okay, looks like it's going to be an Uther main healer with presumably a Varian main tank, which is interesting. I am expecting Dai to pull out some sort of Uther counter here, be that a Lunara or a Chromie or Mephisto or any other sort of high sustained damage. Gul'dan actually a very good pick here with his wave clear. Greymane's wave clear is good, but it's not the best in the game, so you could stand to improve that. Sylvanas banned out on the side of Die Gaming. Sylvanas is always a strong character, always a strong ban, and I would not be surprised if that might be a target ban. I am thinking that we probably see something high damage in the off lane with the Varian and Uther. They have a lot of CC, so probably I'm anticipating something high damage for their 5th pick to help them get those kills. They could do with slightly more burst. They have the sustain out of Tassadar, so being able to follow up on that taunt and that Hammer of Justice is going to be important for them going farther into the draft. On the side of Dai, though, we're going to see that Lunara or the Gul'dan. Junkrat, interesting. Junkrat is not exactly the most common Uther counter pick, but it's not bad by any means, because Junkrat is of course capable of doing a lot of poke damage, and he has a lot of value on the turn-in points. He's able to get a lot of vision on both of the gem turn-ins. Of course, for any of those who may be unfamiliar with the way Tomb of the Spider Queen works, but all of the minions in the game drop gems that the teams can pick up and then turn in at 2 separate points in order to summon a bunch of web weavers that will march down all 3 lanes. Junkrat goes a long way in preventing the enemy team from ever managing to get that turn in if they can get the high aggro team fights in with the Rhaegar. I would be very unsurprised to see a Bloodlust here, and probably I'm expecting some kind of offlaner to go with that Bloodlust. Malthael is a pretty strong pick. We might not be seeing the Bloodlust here. It might be an Ancestral game, but if it's not a Bloodlust game, I don't know why they would pick the Rhaegar per se, because they have very good camp clear, so I am anticipating that. Now, Leoric and Raynor from the other side. Not as much burst damage as I would have expected, but the Entomb is there to follow up on any kills that they may not get in the first place. And it's also potentially a means to keep Junkrat and Malthael in the Entomb once they hit level 20. Now, before they hit level 20, it's going to be a slightly more interesting situation. I do think that they don't necessarily have a ton of damage to follow up with all of the CC that Uther and Varian provide, but it should be not too bad nonetheless. Now, on the left side of here for Legal, we have Leoric being played by H2O, Raynor being played by Fragastellar. Thank you, Tassadar, being played by Kobo. Really enjoys his voice lines. Kothon is on Varian, and good old Death by Smiley playing the Wave of Light Uther. On the other side, for Die Gaming, we have Johanna being played by Glitterbeard, Kazarus on Rhaegar, Shamuskan on Malthael, Hydrahawk on Junkrat, and Greymane being played by Gecko. Now let's have a quick look at their talent selection here. Nothing terribly out of the ordinary. Fear the Reaper is, I would say, a fairly regular pick on the smaller maps. Tricky Shuffles. Perfect Aim is interesting out of Greymane. Looks like he wants to go in on that wave clear quite a bit. As I mentioned, not a ton of threat on the targets that Uther and Tassadar isolate, but of course Varian doesn't have that taunt yet, so we can't really have an accurate analysis of their general strength in the team fights until he hits that good old level 4 power spike and becomes a real hero. Just a lot of poking going on from both sides, which is unsurprising here. Greymane, after all, did go with that good old Gilnean cocktail at 1, which is definitely an uncommon pick, but it is indicative of him wanting to do a lot of poke damage. Interestingly, Veteran Marksman picked up by Fragastellar on the left side, and he has actually gotten a fair amount of stacks within the first minute. If you can keep up 7 stacks per minute, you're going to be in a very good spot. However, Kothon is in a lot of trouble here, and it looks like he's going to go down. Uther did not have the mana to save him there, and potentially not the cooldowns either. But I doubt that he could have even cast a single wave of light to help Varian out there. And of course, before level 4, Varian needs to be very, very careful with his positioning, or he will have something like what just happened there end up killing him. Looks like Uther is having a fair amount of trouble with his mana. On the other hand, Leoric in the bottom lane, not doing too well against Malthael, which is to be expected. Malthael has significantly more lifesteal than Leoric does, especially given the fact that he can lifesteal off of the minions. Looks like both teams playing it fairly safe, Varian dashing in every now and then, but nothing too exciting here. However, Varian is in a fair amount of trouble from that Condemn. Uther's burst healing does manage to put him back into the realm of safety, but the Condemn was fairly scary there from Johanna. Could have very well killed him there if he wasn't careful. However, Raynor in a lot of trouble here, is forced to pop his medallion, and he does get pinged for it. I believe that's the first medallion we've seen this game. If you are not familiar or you've forgotten, of course, medallion is a 1-second unstoppable on a 5-minute cooldown. Slight taunt onto Gecko there, but I don't believe that anybody was really in position to follow that up. Looks like H2O is going to continue having a fair amount of trouble from this Malthael. He did go with the Consume Vitality here, so looks like he's probably... Oh, Greymane might be able to not quite get the finishing blow on him. I think he might have if he just stuck with it a little bit longer, but he did not want to take the risk, which is reasonable. Oh, looks like Leoric just got picked off by Greymane and Malthael in the bottom lane. He was very low health, and of course that's in part due to the pick of Consume Vitality there. Might show that he's leaning towards a Life Leech playstyle, which is my favorite way of playing Leoric. I think that every Pepega in Storm League does enjoy Life Leech Leoric the most, but you've got to admit there is something very satisfying about whapping people with a mace, I think 1.3 times per second, nearly twice as fast as normal, and just healing every time. Now it looks like Rhaegar's in a slight bit of trouble, however Raynor was not in position to follow up there. Even though Tassadar hit a clean combo on Rhaegar, they do not have enough damage without the Raynor to take him out in just one taunt. They're going to either have to be relying on both of the assassins to be in position to deal with whomever Varian taunts, or they're going to have to be having Uther follow up all of Varian's silences with his stun so that they have enough time to finish off that kill. Hydrahawk taking quite a lot of damage from the Tassadar, and Tassadar is doing a good job of just poking the enemy team out, which is very important against a Rhaegar, and of course against an Uther. It's interesting to see a game with arguably two of the lowest healing healers in the game, and not a ton of burst damage to follow up any low health targets. Now it looks like Junkrat is going to, despite his Dirty Trickster at level 7, be taken out without a problem by Tassadar. Tassadar being taken down pretty low, as well as Varian, but they do manage to get out just in time with the assistance of Uther there. Now they have gotten one pick, but they are all pretty low until all those fountains start to kick in, so they might have to play back for a little while here, and it looks like that is exactly what they're doing. Smiley, of course, is still running very low on mana, and that is going to be a common thread the whole game by the looks of it, especially given his level 1 wave of light pick, he is not going to have an easy time keeping his mana topped off. Looks like red team does get the first batch of web weavers, as is to be expected with the Junkrat pick. They do just have an advantage in that turn-in phase. Junkrat is capable of slowing down the enemy team turn-in, but the enemy team does not have a lot of answer to that. Now it looks like both teams want to engage on the other end. Tassadar in quite a bit of trouble from that Junkrat mine, while Johanna pulls him in and barely finishes him off. Could again Fraga Stellar be finished? Doesn't look like it. Over Johanna's very low. If Fraga Stellar started attacking there, he might have been able to take her out, but he wanted to save his own skin, which is a fair decision. Looks like Shamaskan is going to be able to push in that bottom web weaver more or less uncontested, while the mid web weaver, of course, is going to be very heavily pushed in due to that Tassadar death earlier. Looks like Junkrat wants to try and go for kill, but he was kind of baited out of it. He's just going to use the Riptire to just take a trip around, see the countryside, and chunk Smiley just a slight amount. He wants to try and boot Varian back, but that's not going to happen. He's instead just going to take a couple of fort shots that reduce him to half health. You hate to see it. Now Fraga Stellar is left on the solo defense up here, and with that Gilnean Cocktail Greymane build, already at 7 stacks, he is going to be very scared of the enemy team's ability to kill him. However, all of the web weavers down, only one fort gets destroyed. However, the bottom fort is in a very sorry state, and with Malthael soundly beating Leoric in the solo lane, I think that that is going to change very quickly. I think Leoric is going to be able to get that fort in short order. Now it looks like blue team wants to turn in here, but Die Gaming does not want to allow them to. The question is, can they stop it? Looks like they cannot, with Greymane being on the camp. They just wanted to trade that camp for, double camp even, for the web weavers, and arguably I would say that that's the right decision, because they're going to force Legal to either give up a fort or get some pressure on their keep. It looks like Legal is going for the former. Now they want to push in the top lane, which is interesting. They're just going to leave that Bruiser camp to get beaten up by the web weaver for now. It might not actually have enough damage to make it all the way to the keep, but I do believe with the web weaver going down that quickly from Die Gaming's pressure, I think the Bruiser camp is going to be able to push that keep. Now we do have a Riptire coming out from Junkrat, not exactly a ton of damage being dealt with it, and it almost gets hit by the black hole. I believe that it would not, yes, I don't believe it would have dealt damage to the black hole, but he was scared, nonetheless decided to detonate it. Now Greymane gets caught in a very fortuitous entomb by Legal. That was very good. Divine's Shield used slightly early, but it is completely reasonable. They end up with just one more person than the enemy team, and almost everybody at full health. The only person who isn't is the person who can arguably heal himself up the easiest. Although without any enemy heroes around, he will have a slight difficult time with that. Now it looks like blue team Legal just wants to keep going in for that turn-in. They want to try and get Glitterbeard's gems, but not enough people in position there to put a serious threat on Glitterbeard, just a little bit of poke. Kobo is going to try and turn his gems in while the rest of the team delays the enemy team. Looks like most of the gems are being split between the Johanna and the Rhaegar here, so if they can get either one of those picks, as they are clearly trying to do, they will be in a very good position. Now Gecko gets a big entomb put on him once again by the Leoric, and he is not having a good time with these entombs. These entombs are being very solid for Legal, even before the level 20 silence, so you might imagine that it's going to be even more dangerous at that point. Hydrohawk almost does get taken out by the Hyperion, but not enough damage to kill him through Rhaegar's healing. However, blue team did not manage to get any of the gems from Die Gaming there. Legal only managed to kill the target who had just recently died. It looks like they want to go for Rhaegar's gems here, though, and they might just be able to make it. They do indeed get him. Can Junkrat pick them up? Looks like he can. Okay, so those gems are going to be saved for now. And blue team just wants to push down mid, it looks like. They just got that blue web weavers, I believe, turned in by the Leoric just then. And it looks like they again want to go up to top lane. They seem to really like this top lane, so probably indicative of a potential boss play later in the game by them, rather than any bruiser or siege pressure. They want to try and open up that keep for a potential boss play and try and end the game once they're done with this objective. If they can get a clear team wipe here, they might just be able to do that. However, Cawthon is in a slight bit of trouble. Death by Smiley forced out the shield, and Varian is going to go down. Bloodlust used on everybody is going to take the... I cannot speak. Bloodlust is going to take the enemy team down in a major way. Looks like Greymane and Junkrat are able to absolutely tear through Legal there. That is a fairly major turning point for Die Gaming here, and it looks like they might just be able to turn this game around. They didn't get a ton of gems dropped there, but they are going to be able to clear all these Web Weavers uncontested. Even though they did, unfortunately, lose that top fort, they are still going to be able to even go for the boss play. Interesting, with Varian being up right now and Tassadar and Uther following shortly thereafter. It looks like they do have enough clear that they should be able to do it before they come under threat. Now, blue team, it doesn't seem as though they even want to go in on that. Right now, they're just going for their bruiser camp. I doubt that they're unaware of this boss play, so that is doubtless an intentional trade by them. With the level 16, they know that they cannot fight that. Now, it looks like Die Gaming is going to be able to turn in 16 gems or so uncontested, which is, of course, only a fraction of what they're holding at the moment, but it is going to mean that they're going to get a Web Weaver push in conjunction with this boss. Now, I think this boss is not going to quite destroy the fort, but it is going to put quite a bit of pressure on it and prevent Legal from having the potential to take the keep with another boss play for the next 4 or 5 minutes. Legal is not going to be able to pick another boss up. Now, it looks like H2O is fairly far from his team, which is slightly risky positioning, but he can shade in there with that Wraithwalk fairly quickly. Speaking of which, let's check. He has indeed gone for the Life Leech build, so we're going to be seeing the Mithril Mace at 16. You'll love to see it. Honestly, one of my favorite builds to watch, and it looks like, despite the Blessed Shield coming out, the Divine Shield was there from Uther. The Riptire does get destroyed before it goes off, which puts Blue Team in a fairly decent position. Legal is going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Die Gaming with that Hyperion and with the Black Hole. There's a lot of damage going out. However, H2O does get dropped by the burst damage from the Greymane there. And surprisingly, it looks like Die Gaming might walk away from this in a superior position. Now it looks like they're going to have two keeps being pressured by the Web Weavers, which is not a great position for Legal. However, it does look like Legal might be able to save both of their fountains in potentially one fountain. Yes, looks like they should be able to save their bottom fountain in the process, which is good for them. They are running low on those in rapid succession. Now it looks like Die Gaming are going to get a completely uncontested turn-in right after that last one here, and that is going to, with this Bruiser camp, put a lot of pressure on the mid lane, especially given that Legal has to deal with this Siege camp pushing in, especially with that catapult. They're going to have to rotate down there and deal with it while the Bruiser camp pushes in the mid lane, with the Web Weaver coming up rapidly behind it. I believe the Web Weaver should... Does it go to the enemy wave? It does, right? Yes. Web Weaver is going to come out slightly ahead of the minion wave. They did manage to take out that siege camp, however the Web Weaver in bottom lane is just beginning to push in. Now it looks like Die Gaming wants to take this keep, and they want to kill Smiley as quickly as possible. The Black Hole is going to zone some of them out from being able to do that follow-up damage. Greymane going in on Raynor, but he is not going to manage to take him out at all. A lot of damage being put out from that Death Wave coming off of the Web Weaver, and a lot of damage similarly coming out of those Burst Mines from Junkrat. Now it looks like they're going to try and kill Gecko again, but Gecko comes away safe. Divine Shield burned on arguably the wrong target there. H2O barely got out of danger, but looks like neither of the DPSs were able to do it, and it looks like this first game, there's a very good chance of this being an upset right here. It looks like Die Gaming wants to end the game here and now. They are low on health on their Junkrat and their Malthael, but it looks like that doesn't matter to them. They want to just take out this core as quickly as possible, and with 3 people coming up in 20 seconds, I think that there's no way Legal defends against this. So it looks like game number 1 is going to go over to Die Gaming. Very solid showing by them. And honestly, quite surprising how much Legal struggled there. They did get several great Entomb pickoffs from the Leoric there, but not a lot of not a lot of pressure coming out from the Taunt and the Uther. So as predicted, they just didn't have quite enough damage to kill those targets that Varian was taunting. I can see where they were going with that, but just didn't quite work out when the Bloodlust counter engage came in. They were not able to counter that at all. Arguably, Wraithwalk might have been better there to counter that Bloodlust, but ultimately, not a ton they could have done there. Looking at the talent selection, Raynor decided to go for full trait build, which is uncommon to see here in this division. But he did end up with a fair amount of damage. He did almost catch up with Tassadar in the end. Tassadar does characteristically have more damage than Raynor, so he did not play poorly by any means. The full Q build out of Tassadar minus the Q at level 7, and Rhaegar was the only one who took a level 20 talent before the game ended. But unconventional builds from the Greymane and the Raynor, very interesting to see them at this level of play. But overall, pretty solid by both teams. I would say that ultimately it came down to the Varian not getting enough value out of his taunts. If they had had a slightly better tank, there's an entire possibility that they take that game, because they did manage to get several picks with the Entomb. They managed to get both forts. I believe they were at some point leading in the forts before Die Gaming came back and took their forts out, along with all of their keeps and their core. So there is definitely a world in which they do turn that game around. And I do believe that there's a good chance that they do that in the next one. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Rhaegar ban here, potentially a Johanna ban, but if they can just pull out a slightly higher synergy between their tank and their assassin players, I think that they are in a vastly superior position to Die Gaming without that Bloodlust. However, we might be able to see some sort of crazy new strategy coming out from Die Gaming in the next game that circumvents the need for Bloodlust. Going to be interesting to see if we see that. Moving on, this oh shoot, the overlay controller is broken again. Hold on, let me just get that fixed. Should be good here. First one was Tomb, and that was won by Die Gaming and picked by them. And the next map here looks like it's going to be Alterac Pass. So the next map is going to be Alterac Pass, and that's going to be picked by Die Gaming again. So once again, they want to give the first pick over to Legal. And just a wild amount of chatting going on in here. Very interesting. Very interesting. On the whole, I am very interested to see where both of these teams take their strategies. The strategy from Die Gaming did work out very, very well in the late game, and I'd be surprised if Legal allows them to do that again. So I imagine that they're going to need a secondary plan. And on the side of Legal, they did not quite have the synergy that they needed to pull off those taunt kills. So I'm interested to see if they try to go with a slightly more cohesive comp, or if they decide to try a different tact altogether. Either way, I think that now that they've seen what Die Gaming has to offer, Legal is in a very even position, I would say. I think that neither team is particularly advantaged here. I think they're both pretty evenly matched at the moment. Going to be interesting to see if that holds true in this second game. As we wait for the players to get ready here. Continuing on the builds from last game, the Greymane build was very interesting in that he went in with the cocktail build and then kind of strayed away from it towards the late game. So it's going to be interesting to see if he decides to do that again. If he gets Greymane, it could get banned out, although with the picks that Leoric got on him, I would not be surprised if they try to get that Leoric into the Greymane again, see if they might be able to replicate that in game number 2 here. And on the side of Raynor, um, I can see sustaining rounds getting a fair amount of value with an Uther main healer, but I don't know that he got the value he needed out of the veteran marksman at level 1. Now, it was an interesting synergy with the bounty hunter at 16, kind of gave them the burst damage that they might have needed, but ultimately it seemed like playing from behind, they weren't able to pull off those kills in a solid and concrete enough way that they were able to turn it around. So while I think that that's an interesting and potentially great idea from the Raynor to go with that burst damage in the late game from Bounty Hunter combined with Veteran Marksman, it just didn't seem to have the punch in the first game to allow them to get into a spot where they were able to win the next game. Now, apart from that, just I would say that Die Gaming had their heroes positioned very well in that first game, and it seemed like in some cases the members of Legal were split when Die Gaming decided to start the fight. And while Die Gaming did have the Greymane get picked off a couple of times, when it mattered and when they wanted to take those Bloodlust fights, it seemed like they were always in position to pull that off in a major way. And Legal didn't really have a true response to that. They could have gone with that Wraithwalk Leoric, like I said, although you'd probably be sacrificing the Leoric to save the rest of the team in that situation, so not necessarily the perfect counter. He might be able to get out, but he's going to have a hard time standing still while the rest of his team ideally just runs away. Of course, you could also try and make the counter engage work with that damage halving, but with the movement speed from Bloodlust, it's doubtful that you're going to be able to win the fight right then and there, so they didn't really have a direct answer to the Bloodlust comp that Die Gaming brought, and I would be surprised to see if they let that through again. If they don't, then we might just see a much more cohesive answer to it, like a potential Johanna, of course, is very classic counter, not only with the blind, but also the condemn just allows her to completely disrupt the enemies while they're trying to attack her teammates. Artanis Suppression Pulse might be a good answer here, although it's not necessarily something that we see terribly often. Suppression Pulse is certainly one of the more simple answers to a Bloodlust comp. You simply pop down a 4-second blind on them and nullify, I believe, 2/3 of the Bloodlust's duration as soon as it goes off. If I recall correctly, Bloodlust is a 6-second duration, although once they hit level 20, the Gladiator's War Shout does mean that they'll be able to fight past any sort of short-term duration blinds like the Shield Glare, even with the, what is that called? It's not Sins Exposed. Extended Glare? I don't remember. But with even with Johanna's level 7 talent, and with Artanis's level 20 Suppression Pulse, once you get Gladiator's War Shout, you can kind of just keep steaming onwards and wait for those blinds to end, and then just run over the enemy team. But it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see Legal's answer to that. They either ban it or they let it through, and they decide to go with one of those classical counters to it. And either one has interesting ramifications for the team as a whole. Do you let Die Gaming pull out some kind of interesting new strategy here, especially given that they picked the map on Alterac? I believe, if I recall correctly, Die Gaming were the ones who beat up either previously Legal or Death and Delay with the Lost Vikings. I believe that did happen previously, so if you ban out the Rhaegar, you might just leave room for one of those Lost Vikings cheeses to enter the game, and Legal is going to take it to game 3. I do think that you might be right. even if Die Gaming pulls out another strategy, I think Legal just needs to go to a more stable and solid strategy, something like an ETC. Well, ETC and Diablo were both banned out that game, but if they can snag the Johanna, they might be able to just pull out something like a good old Johanna Wombo comp where they run something like Gravo Bomb, potentially the Black Hole again, or a Greymane, even my personal favorite, Mephisto. If they're able to do that, they would have definitely a more solid early game team comp that might be able to beat out Die Gaming in the earlier stages of the game, prevent them from getting that lead. It's going to be interesting to see what happens here. We're having a slight bit of a wait coming out from Legal here, but it should be we should be good to go pretty soon here, I believe. I would indeed enjoy seeing some Cho'Gall. It would be fun to see Die Gaming pull out something like that in game number 2, especially after they have that lead. They can afford to go with a crazy strategy like that if they want to. I do think that Cho'Gall is slightly underrated now, although it's kind of hard to say whether or not that's the case with the Tychus buffs. I believe the Tychus is in a very strong position right now, and if you let him go into Cho'Gall, Cho'Gall was able to play around him if his team helped him. If his team helped him out in the previous patch, but in the current balance patch, they're going to have a really hard time playing into Tychus. But if you ban out Tychus, I do think Cho'Gall, even though he can't do that 6-second permastun anymore that he used to be able to do, I still think that he's in a fairly good position overall, and it's definitely a viable option for Die Gaming to take here. Or Legal. I don't know precisely who would be pulling that out, or when, or why, but it would be something that I would like to see. Lost Vikings would be pretty fun here too. Could see an Abathur pick on Alterac Pass, not necessarily the most common pick, because you kind of want to just have 5 members both at the objective and at the, well, both at the prison camp and then at the cavalry if you win the prison camp, but Abathur does offer a fair amount of value if you play around him, right? But looks like we are ready to go into game number 2 here. As aforementioned, it's going to be on Alterac Pass. Once again, Die Gaming wanted Legal to have the first pick here, so probably indicative of some kind of general strategy that they're going to have for Alterac Pass here. Whether that comes down to a Vikings pick or an Abathur pick or some other sort of global, remains to be seen. I have also seen Deathwing be played on this map, I believe by Boogans. I don't think that Die Gaming played Deathwing, but it is definitely an option here. Gazlowe once again banned out by Legal, and first ban this time rather than second ban. So, seems as though they are intimidated by one of the Gazlowe players on the enemy team, or they might just be of the opinion that Gazlowe is stronger than people think he is after his nerfs, which I am also of that opinion. I do think that he is deserving of a pick or a ban. Not necessarily before somebody like a Cassia or somebody like a Chromie, especially in coordinated play, but definitely a worthy ban early on. Now, once again, we're seeing the Diablo and the ETC choked out, so both teams just want to stick with their bans. I am interested to see if Die Gaming wants to go with that Rhaegar pick early on here, potentially to solidify it before Legal has the chance to ban it out in the second phase. It's entirely a possible strategy for them, and once again, they're going with the Stukov ban. If I recall correctly, they banned that in the third phase last time, but interesting to see no actual changes from the plan this time. However, they do take Greymane on the side of Legal, and could potentially be seeing something like Johanna to set that Greymane up. The ETC and the Diablo are arguably some of Greymane's best setup heroes, but with them gone, you don't have a ton of reliable ones left. You could see a Mei pick here. Johanna, of course, stolen by Die Gaming. Unsurprising to see after I believe they first picked it in the last game too. Now, the options for Legal to run with a tank are somewhat limited here if you want to get the strongest synergy with Greymane. They could try for that variant pick again. Greymane definitely highly synergistic with the taunt as opposed to Raynor, so they could try and go for that again, but they might just go with a different strategy, and looks like they're going to hold that out for now. Interestingly, they're going to steal both of the assassin picks from the side of Die Gaming this time. And Die Gaming has stolen one of the assassin picks from Legal this time too, so we might just be seeing a complete role reversal of the ranged assassins on both teams. It would be quite funny to see an Uther picked up by Die Gaming as well. But I think that if they can go for it, they might go with the Rhaegar, unless they have an ulterior strategy in mind. Excuse me. Now, on the other hand, Anduin was picked up this time, so an Uther ban by Legal, so potentially they picked that in the first game to deny it to Die Gaming, and now that I do remember, I do believe that Die Gaming does play a pretty strong Uther. If I recall correctly, in the game that we got knocked out, I think I played... Yeah, I played Gazlowe into his Uther, and it was pretty rough. It was a poor decision. In hindsight, I realized that I should have gone with a ranged hero in the 4-man, but Cassia and Rhaegar once again... Well, Cassia picked up, and Rhaegar once again picked up by Die Gaming here. They want to go, it seems, with that run him over strategy once again. And Legal did not do anything about that. The question is, what are they going to do with these last two picks to try and counter that Bloodlust? Because Cassia is fairly strong with Bloodlust, and Archon is very, very strong with Bloodlust as well. Blaze makes a lot of sense here. They don't have any direct blinds or any direct ways to keep the enemy team from dealing damage, but if Blaze can put those oil spills down in smart places, especially with the help of Junkrat, there's a good chance that they can keep Die Gaming from moving anywhere that they want to in the team fight. So I think it's going to come down to that zone control coming out of Blaze and Junkrat more than anything else here. Now, the Imperious main tank is something that we're seeing more and more often, especially in these ranks. And Leoric was taken on the side of Legal prior, so Leoric, another hero that was swapped over to the side of Die Gaming this time. Die Gaming now has 3 of the 5 heroes that Legal had in the first game, which is quite funny. But, yeah, the Imperious main tank, potentially very strong with Junkrat. If you manage to set up those concussion mines, and Imperious is good at gauging where the enemies are going to land, you can basically just set up a free spear every time, and those spears hit hard. Those spears do, like, if you take the spear at level 1, the Impaling Light, and especially with Flash of Anger at level 7, those spears can be doing upwards of 1,000 damage when you factor in the auto attack after, so potentially a very strong combo that Legal has set up here. Definitely something that I like a lot more than the comp in their previous game. Looks like Smiley is going to go for the good old pulling your sword out on Anduin strategy. Anduin, of course, does not normally fight with his sword. He just pulls it, he holds it behind his back, because I guess he's a pacifist or something, but if you aim your W outside of the gate, your Divine Star, before the game starts, you can get him to pull that sword out, and I believe it stays out until you die. Now, the players here, it's going to be H2O, sorry, on Imperious, with that Impaling Light. I do believe that he was the Bruiser in the last game, so a slight role swap, if I recall correctly, between the main tank and the offlaner. We're going to be seeing the classic Adrenaline stim pack from Blaze, so he's probably going to be going for the Incinerator Gauntlets, and he's going to be wanting to grab this camp all the time once he gets that level 4. Likewise, we're seeing Blow Him Up with Junkrat. Very solid pick with the Imperious combo. If you ever set up a mine to go into the Imperious stun, you do that bonus damage, and you have a really good time, really easy time blowing that target up, especially with the help of Greymane. Slight convergence upon Blaze in the bottom lane with that Force Wall setup, but he actually did a really good jet propulsion there that managed to kind of eke its way around the wall without him having to walk all the way around. Managed to get him out. Now it looks like they're just doing a classic 1-3-1 split, both teams, and they're both going onto the siege camp at the appropriate time, 1 minute into the game. So both teams are playing this in a very similar fashion. Funny to see that the bruisers aren't fighting each other, but rather the ranged assassins. Both teams decided to make that choice where they wanted to have the bruiser fighting the ranged assassin. Interestingly, at the moment, Legal is losing on both fronts. However, if they play well, that can easily change, given the fact that Blaze has self-healing and Junkrat has pretty strong range and displacement abilities. Anyways, moving on with the players, Fragastellar on Greymane, Kobo on Junkrat, Cawthon on Blaze, Death by Smiley on Anduin, Glitterbeard playing Johanna, Hydrahawk on Tassadar, Leoric being played by Shamuskon, Gecko on Cassia, and Kazros on Rhaegar. Probably should have taken care of that earlier, but ultimately I don't think it matters a ton. The level 1 picks are more classic this game. The Thunderstroke, while it was underrated for a long time, has been increasing in popularity by leaps and bounds ever since the CCL started up, and I believe it was Gotfilth who kind of first showed the potential of what you can do with that level 16, I believe it's Static Charge, I believe is the name of the talent. The one that makes Fend release Lightning Furies towards all of the nearby heroes. When all of those Lightning Furies are buffed up by like 100 or so damage, it can do quite a lot to the enemy team. Strong engage onto the Tassadar, but with the Greymane rotating up there, they didn't have the damage to kill him, and arguably Greymane may or may not have been able to even auto-attack him with how close the Tassadar was in proximity to the wall. Still a good setup by Blaze and Imperius, though, forcing Tassadar to play slightly more safely for the time being. Both teams rotating partially down onto the prison camp. Blaze was forced to Hearth here, which means that Leoric is going to get some free soak in the top lane, while a slight fight goes on in the mid lane. Johanna got speared by Imperius, but is able to walk away scot-free because, well, she's Johanna. That's half the reason you pick her. Chattering Teeth picked here by Junkrat, so not the boom pow that would be indicative of a full-on concussion mine setup, but still a very strong point control setup for Junkrat there. He's going to be able to control the prison camps a lot better once he hits level 13, I believe, is when he gets those that double charge on his steel trap, and of course the sticky wicket there to help out his CC there, make it so that the enemy heroes can't medallion out of it, make it so that Johanna can't press her trait and get out of it, all that good stuff. Drain momentum taken by Leoric here, so potentially we could be seeing another auto-attack Leoric, because that's generally what you see. H2O is slightly caught out in his attempt to kill Glitterbeard here, but I believe he should be able to get away. They don't really have anything to keep him in place with the Johanna on the team. Of course, that's Johanna's main weakness. Once she's got her slow gone, then there's not a ton that she can do to hold the enemy there, as opposed to somebody like an ETC who can keep them there for 1.25 seconds and then push them back towards his team. Now, Flash of Anger is the standard pick, and that's what we're seeing from Imperius. I would like to see a press forward coming out of Imperius on this map, by virtue of the fact that the regen globes are going to drop from the prison camps twice per objective. It would be fun to see that, but Sovereign Armor is always a good pick when you're on the tank. Now, Spear got cancelled by the Condemn there, means that they're not going to have an engage, and H2O is going to be in a fair amount of trouble here. I don't know that he can make it out, but Tassadar actually got killed by Blaze in the enemy line. While Greymane is under a lot of threat, and so is H2O, Blaze just managed to chunk Greymane down seemingly more or less on his own, and a good pull from Smiley there pulls H2O out of danger. That leaves them in a good spot here. They are low on mana compared to the enemy team, but they are going to have a man advantage, which at least means that they should be able to keep Die Gaming from capping this objective, even if Death by Smiley is forced to Hearth for now and regenerate all of his mana. They're still not going to be in any trouble of losing this objective. Although, now that they have done that, it is back into a 5v5 scenario. Legal does have a slight XP advantage, but Leoric wants to even that up as soon as he can, with Tassadar rotating down to catch that XP that Blaze just pushed into his walls. Leoric wants to get them level 10 as soon as possible, and it looks like that's going to leave Legal the room to get onto that prison camp right before level 10s hit. I don't know that they're going to be able to finish it. It all hinges on what they do right now. If they can get a good pick here, honestly, I wouldn't have minded to see a spear on that Johanna just to chunk her out a little bit before the Leoric arrives. However, Leoric did manage to get Die Gaming level 10s. Legal is backing off, but Fraga Stellar gets caught by an Entomb. Death by Smiley is there to pull him out, but Imperius does not have that same help, and that means he's going to go down. Kothon, once again, in quite a bit of trouble. He pops the Adrenaline Stim Pack, though, and that 25% movement speed is going to be able to get away, is going to let him get away quite easily. Now, however, that does mean that Die Gaming is going to counter-engage onto Legal's prison camp, and they're going to be able to take at least the majority of it, if not the entire thing. Death by Smiley does manage to barely get the channel on it, though, and that means that it's going to be almost an even objective here. Funny combo coming out there of the Light Bomb with the bunker there. Light Bomb does still go off if you're in a bunker, and so even though Blaze wanted to run away from the enemy team, he was still able to stun them and get that big shield out of Anduin there. Now, that does mean that they have quite a few of their ults down, with Die Gaming's ults coming back quite soon. They're going to have that Blessed Shield and that Ball Lightning up very soon, in addition to that Entomb already there. Now, they don't have the Bloodlust, which is kind of the linchpin of their comp, if they play it similarly to how they did last time, but they are going to at least be a threat, especially after H2O pops Angelic Armaments quite early. They are going to be down on all of their ultimates, even, well, except for Cursed Bullet, even as Die Gaming has almost all of theirs coming back. Now, Fraga Stellar wants to take that siege camp, which, if he manages to do it without losing the objective, is going to put Legal in a good position. But they are getting hit quite hard by Die Gaming here while they try to contest this objective 4v5. Now, Cassia does get hit by a pretty big spear. That's going to chunk her, but Bloodlust is there to follow up on the damage already put on Imperius. Doesn't look like anybody's going to die yet. Blaze might be in a bit of trouble here. He does have a pull coming in. H2O does go in with a very bold spear that, actually, I think if it hadn't gotten interrupted, he would have been fine there. But the Johanna got a really good condemn that interrupted his spear. Huge Riptire coming in here. Looks like that's going to take out Johanna. Cassia is very chunked, and so is Tassadar. Now, Kothon has almost no mana, but he is in Adrenaline build. He does not need mana as much as he otherwise might have. However, looks like Leoric is just going to be able to keep that prison camp captured long enough for Die Gaming to take this objective. Just barely. Legal did not quite focus hard enough on getting that prison camp back. Now it looks like Greymane wants to put a bit of damage onto Cassia and the towers. Cassia needs to play very carefully, especially with a Rhaegar. Ooh, if that spear had a hit, she would be dead. Because Rhaegar does not have much that he can answer with once he's used his chain heal when his allies get hit. He could have cleansed it, but that does not prevent the impaling light damage from going off. Regardless, though, that didn't land. Cassie was fine, and Die Gaming is going to push in mid here, while Junkrat and Blaze are in the different lanes. Greymane gets caught out with that 3v5 scenario occurring. Looks like they're going to get a big Angelic. Oh, not quite. The cleanse came out just before the Angelic Armaments could hit. I don't think that would have killed Cassia with her 30 armor, but it would have been very close. And her armor, especially because her armor would have started decaying there real soon, Imperius could have gotten a counterkill there. Looks like Junkrat is debating Hearthing, but he wants to try and stay and fight Die Gaming just a little bit here. Is he going to be able to do anything? Until his allies get there, he's not going to be able to step up much, although he can still irritate Johanna a little bit with that steel trap, shoot a couple of grenades at them, and that means that they're going to want to just go onto their siege camp. I imagine here what Die Gaming is aiming for, is probably going to be a push in the mid lane with their siege camp, so to see if they can get any pressure on that keep wall of Legal. Now, on the other hand, Legal wants to pressure the bottom lane, it looks like, interestingly, and potentially they were aiming for a boss play there, but you kind of need to get all of Die Gaming's members in one place and kill them before you can really realistically go for that boss play. Now, Die Gaming is not committing their full team to pushing with the Gnolls, so looks like they're just going to back off for now. Cassia does have that War Traveler to keep her from getting hit by Imperius' spears. Always very solid pick, and it looks like both of these camps are going to go down at about the same time. Legal's camp is going to push into Diagaming's wall, and they should be able to take that out. No problem with Cassia's poke damage. Now, Leoric is coming in from the side, potentially wants to set up an Entomb on H2O, but it looks like he's going to decide not to do it with Kothon rotating in at just the right time. I believe the prison camps should be getting announced here pretty soon, within the next 30 seconds or so, and we should be seeing those get fought over in short order. I imagine that what Digaming wants to do here is try to go for a talent tier advantage and potentially pressure one of these forts. Looks like they're going to try and do a little bit of poking even before they hit those level 16 talents, and that's going to mean that they're going to force Legal to rotate all the way down here, while Blaze and Leoric just kind of do their own thing in the middle and top lane. It looks like Blaze is going to miss a fair amount of XP right over here, but he'll capture at least half of it, which is good for his team. He missed 4 globes there. And that's going to mean that Digaming is going to get their level 16 significantly ahead of Legal. Now, Legal only needs 1 or 2 minion waves in order to get their level 16s, but with Digaming already rotating onto the objective here, Legal does not really have the time to do that if they want to keep it from being taken, which Digaming does not want to take it right now. They could have taken that uncontested and gotten a bit of progress on it, but they decided not to press their advantage. They're going to wait for the enemy team to get 16 and potentially go for a boss play. Interesting. The question is, are they going to actually attack the boss? It looks like they changed their minds. They're going to instead rotate back up to the prison camp as the Knoll camp pushes in once again from the side of Legal. Legal is going to get a pretty decent lead on that objective already, and it might just put them into a scenario where they're able to do what Digaming just did to them, take 2 of Digaming's forts away. Now, what they want to do is try and find a setup with that Imperious Spear, but he hasn't cast it yet, I don't believe. He's going in on the Johanna, and a big root comes in. The Angelic Armaments just does too much damage. She cannot shield away from that. And even though they pop the Bloodlust, I don't know that they're going to be able to do much here. Cassia is putting Greymane under a lot of threat. She does get the kill with the Ball Lightning. However, Cassia is also in a lot of danger too, but it looks like Anduin's going to go down, and that should secure the fight in their favor. Imperious is probably going to get away from this Leoric. Maybe not. Yeah, Imperious is going to go down from that Leoric. Once he landed the spear, I thought there was a decent chance, but not quite going to happen. And it looks like Digaming is going to take their second objective, more or less uncontested, now that they wiped Legal right there. Very interesting positioning by both sides there. I do believe that Legal could have won that fight and gotten an objective if they just backed off once Bloodlust came out. They had that advantage, but they were just a little bit too confident in their abilities. And what we're going to be seeing now is, I believe, just a fully uncontested objective for Digaming. Kobo is going to try and channel it a little bit, and Leoric is not actually going to be able to stop him. Barely, just in time, they all rotate up. Fragastellar is going to get entombed, but he is not in any real amount of danger due to the fact that that Leap of Faith is there to save him. And that means that Legal is pulling it back into a position where they can fight this. However, during that time, Digaming did get a free boss, and that's going to mean that Legal is going to have a hard time clearing that and contesting this at the same time. They do have the advantage of Junkrat, who can just keep throwing out those traps and keep people from actually managing to channel the objective. But the boss is going down very slowly, and they are still not done channeling this objective, and it looks like, I believe, Digaming is going to get it here. However, Legal does want to try and kill Leoric. The Bloodlust comes out, though, and that's going to mean H2O is very trapped along with Greymane. H2O and Kothon are both in a massive amount of trouble here. However, Kazarus, the Rhaegar player, does get low, and Johanna actually dies first. H2O is going to barely make it out with a small amount of health. I do believe he goes down. Yes, he does with the Tassadar Q. However, that Johanna counterkill is very beneficial for them. That turned out much better than it could have. It's not going to mean that they can prevent Digaming from pushing in this prison camp entirely, and they're still going to be in a bad position after losing that. But they can at least do stuff like throw out those concussion mines and get a couple of tower shots on the Tassadar for free. I do believe that Legal has a chance to pull this back, although it is a slim one at this point. We see level 20 just get taken right in the nick of time for the cavalry to arrive by Die Gaming. That's going to be pulling out the Radiating Faith. A lot of ult upgrades across the board. Every single person wants to get their ult upgraded. That Silence and Tomb is going to put Blaze in a massive amount of danger, and he goes down. Greymane, likewise, does not seem to realize how much danger he's in, but his team comes in before Die Gaming moves in on him, fortunately. Now, on the other hand, a big light bomb that Cassia does manage to unstop. I'm not sure if that was Rhaegar who did it or Cassia's medallion, but Cassia could have died there very easily, but she did not. Now, that's 2 keeps down for Legal, and that means that their core is only sitting at 20% health. However, Hydra Hawk and a lot of damage from Greymane, but the blind comes out, keeps him from finishing the kill. The Leap of Faith once again used on Imperius. Imperius wants to try and get a 3-man spear here if he can. Question is, can he? If he can, there's a chance that they win. However, with Bloodlust popped and he missed his spear, I do believe that that puts game number 2 over to Die Gaming. There is nothing that they can do with Smiley and Kobo, the only ones left. And that's going to be game number 2 over to Die Gaming. And that completes the upset of Die Gaming, going from losing every single game in the season to now defeating one of the strongest one of the strongest teams in this whole series. Now I'm going to see if we can get an interview in with one of the Die Gaming members. That's going to be very exciting to see. Alright, we will see if we can get an interview or not here, but in the meanwhile, Junkrat did a lot of damage for the side of Legal there. Interestingly, more than Greymane did, but Cassia just absolutely dominated in the amount of damage that she was able to put out. Interestingly, she did go with Power Strike, which I do believe is an underrated talent as well, but it's definitely not something that we've been seeing picked much in the competitive scene. I can see it being very useful against heroes like Imperius and Greymane, though, who rely on their auto attacks to do a lot of the work. I didn't focus on Cassia enough to see if Power Strike got all that value, but she certainly did well for herself. She got a lot of damage off. Leoric got some great entombs. Much like the first game, Leoric's entombs were the biggest factor that Legal had in the first game to push them towards victory. But in the second game, giving Die Gaming that Leoric turned out very poorly.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, doing all right. Oh, we have a 2-man interview here on our hands. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
Okay.
I can't either.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Oh, my good lord.
Still can't hear you.
We will do this instead. Can you hear me now?
Might have to hop out and back in.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
Hey, there we go. So we have a 2-man interview on our hands. Would you guys mind introducing yourselves?
Sure. I am Glitterbeard and captain and tank for Die Gaming.
Fantastic.
And I'm Kazarus, the healer/support and assistant captain for Die Gaming.
Yeah, and it seemed like you had a very large part in both of those victories. Those bloodlusts were absolutely huge, and I was surprised to see Legal not have an answer to that in the second game after they let it through. So, would you say that the Rhaegar was the most central part of your entire team comp, or was that just an extra benefit, or what was your whole idea going into these 2 matches?
Yeah, so the funny thing about the Rhaegar pick is I actually haven't played him for a while. I played a ton of him before, and then, of course, when Bloodlust got buffed, I played him a bunch again, but then I don't know, I started picking up other healers, so it was kind of a throwback moment, but just like riding a bike, so it ended up working.
Yeah, it was very abrupt in terms of how rapidly the fights turned around every time Bloodlust was popped. And the other question I have is, what were were you trying to get the Leoric pick to deny it from legal, or were you really hoping that that would kind of pull the comp together? Because that seemed to be a huge benefit as well.
Yeah, I think we like Seamus Khan is a very good Leoric. We like him on Leoric, and I think kind of like what you said about just pulling the comp together. It's a good. I don't know. He's kind of a jack of all trades, right? Leoric could do a little bit of everything. He could tank a little. He could throw out some damage. So I think having him, that last pick I think it was crucial.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like both the Leoric and the Rhaegar kind of pulled everything together in a way to where you had two means of finishing kills, and you could always eke out a win, even if you got killed on Johanna or the Rhaegar got killed halfway into the fight. You could still turn that around in a major way, and that seemed to be your greatest power. Now, were you expecting them to pick the Junkrat? What do you think about that? Was that like a we'll give it to them, or was that more of a surprise?
I was actually surprised by it. I thought it was more of a counter to the Junkrat from the previous game.
Mm-hmm.
I admittedly have not done a much of a scouting job, though. That's kind of the other guys, so I don't know about that.
Overall, though, I'm pleasantly surprised by your performance in this series. Legal, I believe, is prior to this undisputedly the strongest team in the division. They did get beaten by a couple of lower down teams, but for the most part, they went undefeated for a long, long time. And
Yeah,
how are you guys feeling about that?
we feel good. Legal is like you said, they're the number one team. They're tough, man. But just like you guys, I think Div B in general, Div B Northeast, it's very well balanced. Where I think everybody has a chance in this division. But yeah, I mean, kudos to Legal for being number one and kicking tail throughout the regular season. So we're obviously happy to beat them, right? But it was stressful for sure.
It certainly seemed like it. They came very close to pulling a lot of picks and team fights that were going to win them the game there. But that aside, are you looking to go into Division A here if you manage to win your next match?
You know what? One game at a time. I hate to use that sports
All right,
sports metaphor, but
that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, we don't know. We haven't even talked about it. We're just we actually, as soon as we got done, we're like, okay, who's next? And we're trying to figure out who we play next, and we won't know until Sunday. And so I don't know how that. I think that's some homework on my side to know how that works. But yeah, I mean, would it be nice to go to A? I think if we felt confident enough to play A, I think that'd be great. Right? I mean, just the whole idea is to raise your skill level up to keep moving up divisions. So we'll see. I mean, that's a good question. I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah, of course. Well, assuming that you guys don't, I look forward to beating you in the next season because we are going to be coming back, minus Sheej and Robin, but the majority of the team, Deckard's Area Edition, is still going to be there. And
Awesome.
I think that's all I have to say.
Awesome.
Awesome
Well,
games tonight.
Thank you. Well, thank you for casting. We appreciate you picking it up. It's always nice to have not just our games, but a Division B game cast. So we appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
I was looking forward to it because of how interesting Die Gaming's progression has been throughout the season. So thanks for persevering, for coming through in a major way and giving me such a good, contest to watch. It's great.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you.
So thank you.
See you guys around. All right, well, with that, the full circle upset has been complete. Of course, we already have had every single team beat at least one other team in the division earlier, but seeing Die Gaming beat Legal is something that I think nobody would have predicted 2 or 3 matches into the season. And it's pretty exciting to see how this is turning out, and if Bugans can turn it down, turn their turn the tables on. I think they're going against Scalding Sweat Cult this Sunday. That's going to be a very interesting match to watch because Bugans has been an enigma for me as a Decadary Edition player and a very interesting team to watch for the whole season. Very similarly to Die Gaming, and especially with that Uther pick. I should have asked Kazarus about that, but should have thought about that. But both of those teams have had some very interesting strategies that I've really enjoyed seeing come out, and if they fight each other, boy howdy, I will try to be there. I will see if I can get that match. However, even if they fight Death and Delay has been a pretty cool team too. Definitely one of the more consistent and stable teams, but we beat them, and maybe Die Gaming will too. So yeah, I must admit I'm surprised to see a 2-0 victory going to Die Gaming here. It seems like the vast majority of the matches in Division B Northeast have been these 2-0 dominations, which is just so funny to me, where you see a team like Legal on one day beat Death and Delay, I think, 2-0, and then the next day get beaten by, I want to say, Lubu 2-0. It's just so funny that all of these 2-0 dominations have happened in this division, and it's been a real roller coaster of a ride to both play in and cast. But I look forward to seeing who's going to win that Sunday match and seeing where this division ends up, because I think it's anybody's guess as to which of these three teams comes out on top. But as for now, I hope that all of you guys had a good time watching my cast. If any of you have any feedback for me, I would greatly appreciate posting it in chat. I'll keep it open here, even though I don't think there's much point in keeping the stream online for much longer. I don't have much to talk about anymore, but if anybody has any suggestions, I just post those over in the chat, and I'll keep them in mind for the next match, which could be Bugans Forever versus Die Gaming. We shall see if that occurs. I would be very excited to see that happen. But as for now, I hope that all of you have a good day or evening, good rest of your week, and I will catch you on the flip side.